Hello, hello, and welcome everyone to our first Startup Global event, Entrepreneurs Going Global Early Stage Advice. I'm Kayla Isabel, and I'm the CEO here at Startup Canada. Welcome, everyone. To begin, I'd like to acknowledge that the land on which I am on today is located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We also acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of all Indigenous peoples. I encourage each of you tuning in today to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional territory that you are residing on. Today's session is being recorded. We are live on Facebook as well, so welcome to our Facebook audience, and we will be sharing the session for any of our Startup Global participants for months and years to come. We invite each of you now of our attendees on Zoom to introduce yourself and connect with each other in the chat. Feel free to share your name, your organization, and where you are joining from. It'd be great to see representation from all across Canada today. Now, a bit about Startup Canada, for those of you who might not be familiar. Startup Canada is a national nonprofit that is the gateway to Canada's entrepreneurship ecosystem. We are here, and our whole raison d'etre is to connect entrepreneurs with support, with community, and with tools that they need to build successful businesses in Canada and internationally. Since launching in 2012, Startup Canada has grown to support more than 122,000 entrepreneurs annually and an ever-growing grassroots community network from coast to coast to coast. Startup Global, the program that you're participating in today, is one of Startup Canada's flagship programs. It connects a pan-Canadian cohort of entrepreneurs wanting to build global businesses with a network of partners dedicated to their success. We do this through workshops, through boot camps, pitch building sessions, advisory support, a full-fledged pitch competition, digital resources, all housed in an accessible and easy to use online portal. So if you haven't checked out the Startup Global portal, definitely sign up today. It's completely free. This program really recognizes the importance of exporting to the Canadian economy. It celebrates those making waves in the global market space. We're going to be hearing from some fantastic panelists today who have done just that, and aims to empower early stage founders to take their ventures to the international stage. I'd like to take a moment to thank our co-presenting partners, Export Development Canada, the Trade Commissioner Service, and UPS. We have Paul here today, our fabulous UPS champion, and our national and community partners, the Forum for International Trade Training, also known as FIT, MasterCard, Scotiabank, eBay, and Google. This program would not be possible without your support. Today's conversation is focused on early stage advice for entrepreneurs looking to take their business to a new market. Today's speakers are all entrepreneurs who have been there and done that, and they understand the challenges that can be in front of you when trying to tackle an international market. You're going to be hearing about their experience of exporting their businesses, different types of businesses, how they've overcome challenges that they've faced, and hopefully some really practical advice that you can implement into your business today as you start your journey to go global. So without further ado, I'm honored to introduce our Startup Global champion and dear, dear friend of Startup Canada, Paul Gaspar, the Director of Small Business at UPS. I'll hand it over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Kayla. I appreciate the introduction. Always a fun time working with Startup and all these events that we're working through. My name is Paul Gaspar. I'm the Director of Small Business at UPS Canada, which basically means I get to really meet and work with some really cool people. And these are entrepreneurs and small businesses across our country. And today is no exception. I have an opportunity to moderate an amazing panel of entrepreneurs, people that have put it out there, start up a business with a purpose, and they've gone global as well too, because that's what this is all about. With the Startup Global is to talk about being global. So what I want to do is introduce our panel. And as soon as we have the opportunity for them to do introductions, we got a whole bunch of questions that we want to position their way so that they can share their knowledge and expertise with everyone that's attending today or watching this at some future date. So what I'd like to do first, if possible, there's two people that are part of one of the businesses, which is Kind Laundry. So I'm going to pass it over to Angie and then Bernard, if you guys want to introduce yourselves and your business.
So my name is Bernard Law. I'm one of the co-founders of Kind Laundry. And our company's mission is to eliminate plastic laundry detergent jugs through the use of laundry detergent sheets.
Angie?
Yes, I'm the other co-founder of Kind Laundry. And yeah, Bernard explained our business, but our biggest why is to create something that will directly impact the environment and people around us for the better. And yeah, so every single box that we sell eliminates plastic that goes into the landfills and oceans. So that's our biggest why.
Perfect. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more with the very first question. But let's turn it over to Adam and have him introduce himself quickly.
Thanks, Paul. Hey, everyone. I'm Adam. I am one of the co-founders at Scout, among other things. Scout is a North American craft seafood cannery. So our mission as a brand is to connect consumers back to ocean health and climate action through great food. And we're all about domestic sourcing and production and increasing our exports of high quality Canadian seafood products abroad.
Excellent. And if we're hoping that we've got a third business that hopefully will join us, they're a little tied up right now. But if you see someone pop on the screen, Celine, she's the founder and CEO of Euthabag, then we'll obviously get her into the mix of the questions as well. But we don't want to hold this up. We want to get this started for everyone that's online and listening. So what I want both businesses to tell us first and to share is a little bit more depth about your business. But what I really would like to know is your purpose. And you sort of touched on that a little bit, Angie. So I'm going to go to you first. But tell us a little bit more about the purpose behind your business. And because, again, we're talking about going global here, what is your connection to the global community as well? So a bit of a two-part question to start off.
Yeah, so sustainability is obviously a huge topic right now, not just in Canada, but globally. We've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of amazing buyers, retailers, investors all over the world. And the biggest thing is that apparently their country also had mandates too, to also tackle the whole plastic crisis and just sustainability too. So yeah, that's how our product connects globally, is because we're offering a product that is solving a problem right now, especially in the laundry space, because it is quite an old, boring, outdated category. So we're coming in with an alternative solution that's not only sustainable, but safer for just the planet and just the people that's using the product too.
And I can testify as a user of the product that it's a great product as well too. So, and that's not just a plug for Angie and Bernard, it's the truth. So Adam, over to you. What is the purpose of Scout and how do you connect to the global community?
Well, we're looking to be the most trusted seafood brand in North America. Globally, the global seafood is one of the most traded commodities in the world, and there's a tremendous amount of environmental abuse and human rights abuses in the global supply chain around seafood. So a lot of seafood that's imported into Canada is coming from supply chains that need to be questioned. And we also export a lot of seafood as well. So what we realized in kind of building the business over the last couple of years is how disconnected consumers are from our oceans and waterways, both as a food system and also their role against climate change. So we thought that the best way to, bring our oceans and waterways into the conversation is to really just, do that around great food. Food is a really great medium to have people connect and discuss and engage in important issues. So that's what we've done with the Scout brand. And when you look at our particular category, which is shelf stable or ambient canned seafood, we all grew up on, tuna, kind of cheap and cheerful, put it in your pantry, make a tuna salad sandwich out of it. But in other parts of the world, preserved seafood, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and France is much more like wine, charcuterie, cheese. It's really about the craft of preservation. And we're kind of disappointed to see with a country that has multiple oceans and access to quite a bit of seafood, that there wasn't really a high quality domestic product that could perform well internationally, and also one that we could offer to consumers at home. So that's what we do. We are able to offer really great seafood products that are the most responsibly sourced in the market, domestically in Canada and into the US. And then that's increasing for us also globally and abroad.
Good. Okay. So you know what? Let's stick with you, Scott, on this follow-up question. going global, and something I've been talking to entrepreneurs and businesses for years now, is such an important thing for business, but can be such a daunting thing as well too. So obviously there is a lot along the way that you learned. Could be valuable skills, could be resources that you've had to leverage. Just curious from those two aspects, either skills or even resources that you've had to tap into. How was your sort of global journey as you started to go outside of Canada?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question. I think it's really important to use our local market in whatever province you might be in, obviously, to focus on that and initially scaling your business. It's easier to make mistakes in your own backyard, and with the support of different advisors and your community around you, to kind of de-risk some of those early days where you're still figuring things out, and inevitably things are going to break. You're going to make mistakes, and it's a lot easier to do that in a more kind of controlled environment, in a controlled market. So I would, definitely encourage any entrepreneur to really just focus on kind of owning your home market. Don't take the Canadian market or your provincial market or urban market for granted. That's where you're likely going to have the most support, and where it's easier to make those mistakes. And once you start to really figure out your business model in a controlled market, one where you have the most support and resources, then that's when you can start to look externally for where there's going to be additional opportunity, whether that's growing to the next province or whether that starts to be growing towards the United States or other markets where your product might make sense. So treat the Canadian market or your local market like a sandbox to really ideate and get your business model off the ground, and find your product market fit, figure out unit economics on your products before you take on the adventure of starting to go abroad to different markets. It's definitely a challenge, and you really just need to lean into other folks that have done it before. It definitely takes a village to build any company today. You shouldn't be shy about asking other entrepreneurs for support. Obviously, resources like Startup Canada are fantastic, and can help you on that journey. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs and business leaders out there who are more than happy to give back their time. We wouldn't have been able to do what we've done at Scout without that supportive community and advisors, and really leaning into the startup ecosystem that exists in Canada. So that's kind of my 2 cents on how to start, and then where you should start to export, after you figured out your business model.
And I love that. I mean, it's really organizing your own backyard first before you go elsewhere. And when you're going elsewhere, it's asking for help. And to your point, it could be those that have done it or those that are experts in it. And it's one piece of advice that I'm always sharing, because there is so much resources out there that you can tap into. You just got to ask. And I'm glad to hear that that's definitely something that you did to help you along the way. Angie or Bernard, I'm not too sure who wants to take this on, but from Kind Laundry's perspective, is there any other type of valuable skills or even resources that you leveraged when you took your business global?
Yeah, so we took a slightly different approach where we actually entered the US market before the Canadian market. And that's because it came from our past experience, really, just knowing how different platforms like Shopify work, because we were mainly an e-commerce platform to start with before we actually entered a retail market space. So it's I don't want to make it sound less complicated than it is, but we just watch a lot of YouTube videos and Google a lot to learn how to sell online. And to be honest, I think, for example, like the US market has their infrastructure is a little bit more built out for e-commerce. So it just makes that journey a little easier. And like Adam said, really just get yourself out there. There's a lot of, networking events now, especially around Toronto, now that the community has become bigger than what it was when Angie and I started a few years ago, especially on e-commerce. And even, just joining communities like Startup Global and talking to other founders and just learning from them, how to export, how to import, and just asking questions to people that have done it before. Because we find that in our journey, you can replicate and take someone else has done and apply it to your own exact business. And a lot of times that won't necessarily work in your case. And everyone has a different journey, and just being very open-minded into trying different things. Angie, I'm not sure if you have anything else to add there.
I think you did a great job. And so this year and after Startup Canada, the support of Startup Canada, we have been entering the retail space. So it's backwards now. So in e-commerce, we're mostly in the US market, but now with retail, like Adam said, we're testing the Canadian market. It's really cool because we came back from a trade show. So we're able to speak to hundreds of retailers and potential customers and get live feedback from our product and be able to test that out in our home backyard first before we actually launch it globally as well. So depending on the channel, it's like a different strategy we find. Yeah.
And that's great. And I think for the audience, it's really important to hear both sides, because obviously, Scott, I mean, you were making sure that you had everything within the Canadian borders locked down first. But obviously, Angie and Bernard went to the US first. And a lot of that has to do with knowing your capabilities, but also knowing your product and knowing where your competition is and where the opportunities are. Because again, both approaches are good. There's not one that's right versus the other. And I've been fortunate to see many that have done both, right? There are brands, businesses here in Canada that many of us know that started internationally first, but they're home-based Canadian businesses. And I guess Kind Laundry would be one of those as well. So that's good to know. So to stick with Angie and Bernard, one of the things I heard as we were preparing for this is that when you were first going to international markets to enter, one of the things that you, I guess, helped you was using Faire.com. And that sort of helped you test new markets and where to go to. So can you maybe explain a little bit more as to how you came across that, what it is, and how it's helped you go global?
Yeah, so we had another brand a few years ago, and Faire.com, before they had like a lot of VC and private equity funding, reach out to us to be part of their platform. But the idea of that platform is to connect, is B2B. So it connects retailers to brands that have like a mission-based story behind them. So it was, I believe it's timing, because when we came on with Kind Laundry 2 years ago, it's also like COVID hit. It's right in the middle of the pandemic. So a lot of retailers weren't going to trade shows. They were going online to find new products. So I think it was just timing too. And we were one of the first launch products to be on the platform. So that really helped us in the first year of launch, get our product in front of smaller retailers. I think by the end of the first year, we were in 500 at the end of, I think, 2021 in the US, mostly US, but they just opened up international markets to Europe and Asia as well. So we're seeing a lot of interest from specifically the UK. And we're trying to figure it out right now because there is duties and VAT, like a VAT, etc. But it's interesting because they're willing to pay for it to get our product into their market. So this year we're trying to figure out how to get into international markets. But yeah, it's been a great platform for us, for sure.
And what's great about what I'm hearing you say with Faire.com is, there's still, small businesses that are starting up that have this fear of, for me to go global, do I need to be present? Do I need a distributor? Do I need to be in market? And gone are those days. And again, I'm not saying that might not be what's right for your model and for your business, but it's no longer a requirement, right? I mean, you can be based here in Canada and be global in nature. And obviously Faire.com and other platforms that are out there can help you do that. You just need to navigate, to your point, moving those products. And later on, we're going to get to that subject and dive into that a little bit more. Scott, from your perspective, obviously you went to the US after expanding in Canada. Tell us a little bit about that process. How did you sort of enter into the US market?
Yeah, sure. And Paul, it's Adam. The company brand name is Scout.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's okay.
That's what happens when you're focusing on the question as well, too. Sorry, Adam.
All good.
I've done that twice too, haven't I?
All good. Just circling back on what Angie also said. I mean, look, I think it's easier than ever to start a business today. It's harder than ever to scale one, right? We have a lot of tools available to us. I mean, Shopify and Square and any number of tech platforms that allow us to move it with a lot more speed and agility in building businesses that weren't available even 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And it can also kind of be confusing when you're talking about entering different markets and through different channels. Are we an e-commerce company? Are going to be, going to focus on physical retail as a company? And I mean, truthfully, today, brands end up being everything at some point, where they really focus on, the buzzword is omni-channel, where you're both online and offline. But it, of course, is typically easier to start with e-commerce, just because there are so many tools now, and the barrier to entry with e-commerce is a lot lower than it is to enter the physical retail environment. Physical retail environment is still very old school. It's full of a lot of gatekeeping, distributors and brokers and listing fees and promotional requirements. And it's a very, very expensive space to grow your product or your service in physical retail. So most brands start by selling online, and there are really great tools like Faire.com who have done a lot of the heavy lifting for you by building out an incredible network of independent retailers that shop their marketplace in the same way you would shop on Amazon. So as it relates to Scout, we began in Canada just kind of for our soft launch, but just like Con Laundry, we quickly went to the US within the first couple of months. It's a very kind of Canadian thing to do, where a market of 35 million people now, the equivalent of the state of California, right? So obviously there's a lot of reasons to go to the US just on the population density alone and the market opportunity. But the Canadian market can be a great kind of market to like lock up, especially if you're kind of first to market with your innovation or your brand concept. So going south of the border, we got Faire.com set up. We had a separate Shopify store set up. You can't actually have a Shopify store that works for both markets easily unless you're doing a lot of volume, and financially Shopify doesn't have a product that works for kind of multi-country stores. There is a currency converter, but we wouldn't recommend going that route. Typically it makes sense to actually have separate stores for different markets that you're entering with Shopify until you have kind of an aggregated amount of volume and transactions running across all those stores, where you can afford kind of the Shopify plus platform. So that was our first step, was definitely getting our direct to consumer kind of foundation set up with a separate US store. We also built our own wholesale portal for both our Canadian independent retailers and our US independent retailers that could order from us directly. So we have D2C Canada, D2C US, wholesale Canada, wholesale US. And that's how we started, along with getting into a few of the key B2C and B2B platforms, Faire.com being one of them. And in our category, and I'm sure Kind Laundry would fit in really well, an e-commerce platform like Thrive, which is a grocery e-commerce platform that you need to be invited into or have to kind of work your way towards. But if you're a natural health product, that's an amazing platform, and they make up a huge portion of our business. We also identified, after building a bit of an indie retail base in the US, we were able to kind of target our one Whole Foods region in the US, the Northeast, and really concentrate a lot of our financial resources on the launch of Whole Foods and making sure that we were set up for success and not spreading ourselves too thin. So kind of going back to my earlier point, there's a lot of shiny objects out there when you're growing, and there's a lot of options. You kind of have to ask yourself, who you are as a company. Do we want to be a big company? Are we expecting to do multiple rounds of funding and become venture backed and have that crazy level of scale? Or are we looking to create a lifestyle business here that's going to do a couple 100,000 to maybe a few million a year? And those two strategies are very, very different. But e-commerce is always the way to start, typically, before you start to make your way into physical retail. That's just a lot more complicated and expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see that we've got Celine that's joined us as well too. So welcome, Celine. Appreciate you taking the time. We're going to come to you in a second with a couple of questions, but I want to go back to Adam, and I've got it now, right? So I'm going to go back to Adam, and I want to. You talked about a lot of the things that sort of helped you and how you sort of navigated to get into the U.S. market, but there must have been some challenges, some things that you dealt with, because all three of the businesses on today's panel are all product based. So you actually got to move your product into those markets. So Adam, going into the US, what are some of the challenges in exporting that you've had to learn or overcome or deal with, be it international partners, be it the supply chain side of it? or even dealing with any competitors you might have in those markets. So can you maybe share some of those challenges with the audience?
For sure. When you're getting started in moving products cross border, it can be daunting, until you're in it and then you've done it a few times. It does get easier as time goes on, but it is very confusing at the beginning. So some of those initial hurdles, on top of figuring out what your actual sales channels are, like where are we going to sell our products, whether that be online or in physical retail, then it's about getting your products across the border. And kind of going back to what I said earlier, the logistics industry is still pretty old school. Like moving products through freight companies and using brokers is a lot of paperwork and digital forms and phone calls and tracking. And it hasn't really caught up. It's an old school part of moving product around. It's an older industry. So working with a broker that you can develop a relationship with, where they have all of your information, your company information, your product details on file. Their job is to move product to and from the border every day. And they understand what type of paperwork is needed and can kind of hold you accountable to that whole process. So yeah, the first couple, orders that you ship across the States through e-commerce, a little bit more scalable. Shopify is very helpful for that. The shipping companies that are set up here are helpful for that, the paperwork that you're filling in. But as soon as you get to a commercial level where you're shipping, pallets or truckloads across the US, that's where things become a lot more complicated, especially when you're dealing with food. These are food, and a lot of products are obviously controlled by things like the FDA. And there's a lot of different compliancy requirements depending on the product category that you're in. And as soon as you go to something like the FDA website, trying to figure that on your own, you'll quickly realize that you need a broker to be able to help you navigate that, because it is set up for trade between, mostly large companies and things that haven't changed for decades. So those are some of the initial hurdles. It's kind of let me just kind of encapsulate that. It's the admin, the paperwork, and just the lack of knowledge that you would have starting out of shipping your products cross border. So definitely working with a broker is really important. And then figuring out a third-party logistics company that can potentially warehouse your products in the United States versus having to ship everything every time you get an order from Canada. That's also a really good option. So that would be kind of the initial hurdle, right? And there's all kinds of different challenges as you get into your market. Of course, competition is one of them. But the US market is big, and depending on your product and your product market fit, maybe the US market isn't the right place for you to start. There's a lot of different markets out there that could make sense for your product. So I think what you're going to hear this from us today on repeat is just continue to lean into your network and the support system, the ecosystem that we have to help have people point you in the right direction. Because everybody that's done it before wants to help other entrepreneurs do it more efficiently than what they had to go through themselves, us all being probably some of them that are willing to help out. But yeah, if you have any other specific questions, Paul, outside of just, moving products across the border, happy to add more color.
Yeah, no, and we could dive into that a little bit more as well too. Just give the rest of the team, I guess, opportunity to answer this question as well. But the one thing I want to sort of hone in on, and you mentioned several times, was having a good broker. And being in an industry myself for a long time, what I've always heard is, you date your shipper, but you marry your broker. And the reason for that is, for a lot of the points that you mentioned, it is critical. Making sure that when you're crossing borders, that you've got everything aligned is very important. I've had a lot of people come to me and say, customs officials, they're just picking on my business, and and you hear a lot of negative things from them. And I always, let them know as to the job that they have, right? If we really recognize, for example, what our CBSA officials are doing, they're really protecting our country, right? I mean, they're protecting our country at the airports when people are coming in and when products are coming in, right? So if we recognize what they're trying to do, it is an important job, and that's why it is critical to have a partner, a broker that knows the nuances of going into new markets and what's required, because otherwise you're going to definitely come across challenges and issues. So very, very important. So then give me one more chance. I want to give both Angie and Bernard maybe a chance to add anything different that they want to add to what Adam just provided as far as significant challenges when navigating exporting. So is there anything that you want to add, Angie or Bernard?
No, I think Adam did a great job kind of summarizing the challenges. We had the same challenges. There's two challenges, the DDC side, which is finding the right third-party logistics provider. Unfortunately, it's actually much more expensive to ship within Canada than to ship to the US because their infrastructure is more built out. But we found finally, we actually went through like, it was a nightmare. It was like trial and error, but we went through 3 different logistics supplier providers, and we finally found one that we worked closely with. And they were such an amazing partner. Like their entire team actually hopped on a call with us to customize the platform for us to that level to make our life easier. So having that in place, they're called Stallion Express. Their rates are amazing. So what they do is that if you sell your stuff on, just say, your website, and you have customers in the US or internationally, you can buy the labels through them and they'll truck the products over to the US for a very cheap rate as well. So that was very helpful for us for international markets. And the second challenge was, again, brokers and also logistic freight forwarders. So normally when we get a quote to ship internationally, I always get multiple quotes because the actual price difference is very large. So that's a learning lesson. Until after quite a few times of like shipping, we kind of found the freight forwarder that we thought had a consistent quote that had a fair price, because it's not just about price, it's all about service. So yeah, we have our own freight forwarder now, and a really amazing broker that we met through a friend from a networking event that also tried like 10 different brokers before. So it's a lot of trial and error, but yeah, having the right backend team is critical to what we do for sure. Yeah.
You get what you pay for, right? Yeah, the cheapest option is not always the best option. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. And what you were talking about with that one solution, I mean, we've offered as well too. We call it trade direct, but yeah, if you're going into the US market, there is a way of making sure that you've got sort of one pickup, one clearance into the market, and then it's dropped into the US market, almost like a domestic US shipment, which does reduce your cost quite a bit. So that is a really good solution. And I might come back and bug you about that a little bit, but offline. Okay, Celine, thanks for joining us. Before you answer that question, just for everyone that's listening in today, just maybe explain a little bit about your business and how you, I guess, your business, the purpose of your business, and how you decided to go global.
Hello, everybody. Sorry for being late. You can't control everything, can you? So yeah, my business is quite different from our friends. Today, I'm in the veterinary world. I'm a veterinarian in practice. And when I was dealing with euthanasia, end of life, I was putting all of my heart into the procedure, trying to be there for the families, helping them through this these difficult moments. And then at the end of the procedure, I had when finally the pet deceased, I had to put his little body into a plastic bag, not to say a garbage bag, because that's what it is. So I designed a body bag for pets so they can depart with dignity, and we can honor the bond, and we can feel better as veterinary professionals as well. So that's what I'm doing. And we went global because we wanted to provide service training for our clients, and we needed so basically there's not much education around end of life for veterinary professionals, veterinarians or veterinary nurses. So we just graduate from school and are just shipped into practice without any knowledge on how to talk to people that are suffering, how to take care of pets in the best way we can to provide the best experience for the family. So all of this we needed to train. So we needed to have people to make all these trainings and so on. So we just needed a bigger market, and you know it's the biggest market of the world, and it's 5 kilometers away from our offices. So that's where we went global. We went to the US, and then because this product is such needed, we had requests from France. We didn't advertise internationally, but people are coming to us because there's such a need, and there's not really another product in that very glamour area of end of life.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Just to try to understand a little bit more what you said there at the end. So you said you haven't advertising, but I'm assuming you are at this point selling and shipping a lot of the Youth of Bags into the US, right? Is that correct?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. We're not shipping ourselves so much as our distributor, American distributor, is buying directly from China. But we do have about 1% of our sales that we ship from Canada, and I share everything that was said before, and I've not found yet the partner we're looking for, and yet when it crosses border, then we get an email, we get a phone call, we need this paper that we already sent by email to the freight forwarder and stuff, and it's just always chaotic. So we're trying to find our way, and I'm just thinking now, well, I'm going to contact you guys to know a little bit more what's your recipe for success for that, because we want to avoid to be always in that rush and being threatened of having our stock left at border, at border and stuff. So that's been our challenge. Also, for sure, lately it's been so hard to book transportation with our freight forwarder from China to ship it to Canada, and also we're sending a lot of samples of our product to potential customers in the US, and it's very expensive for us. So finally, we're able to have our distributor in the US ship from the US to the US. Another challenge that we've had is we've been considering of just having some stock in the US to be able to ship at a more reasonable price, but I've not found a solution yet that would not involve a lot of paperwork, fiscal issues as well, and cost and third, our next challenge is we'd like to sell B2C, but are not sure about the platforms, what platform to use, and find our way through Amazon. It's challenging. And then we don't know if we should go for it or wait a little bit and hire a consultant, do it ourselves, hire the consultant through Upwork, hire them from Canada. So we're a little lost in that aspect, but it's only 1% of our business that we sell to consumers direct. But we think it's something important to do for us, as our product is just starting to be copied by some pet crematorium in Europe and the US.
No, and you bring up some good points. And I think, Adam, you're the one that brought up also having warehousing or distribution within the US as well. And absolutely, again, another thing that we offer, but there's many out there that do that. And again, depending on your need, there are solutions that make sense. You don't need to be a Fortune 500 company that needs massive space. You can have one product, one SKU that you can find a partner that makes it much more effective for your business from a cost and from a customer experience, to have it local and ship locally, as opposed to having to always navigate it on each order internationally as well. So that's good to know. I'm going to ask a specific question here, and the reason it's specific is because you all have products, you therefore all have packaging requirements, and that packaging requirements is twofold. You've got your shelf life type of product, the packaging, but then you also got your packaging needs to move it through transit, be it freight, be it courier, whatever the movement might be. So maybe I'll go back to Bernard and Angie to start off first, but have you dealt with challenges when you were starting off and starting to ship your products with the type of packaging you have? When did you think about packaging for shipping needs, not for shelf needs? I'm just curious as to, what work you've done or challenge you might have come across from that, because it's something that in our space we see always as an afterthought, and it always brings up challenges. So I'm just curious if you've got anything you can share from that perspective.
So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Bernard. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think it was much of a challenge, but more like what to be more aligned with our company mission. So we wanted to ensure that we're not using any plastic packaging, any plastic like bubble wraps or anything like that. So I guess our specific challenge was to find something that's sustainable. So initially we used compost mailers, but it didn't have a lot of protection to it. So we find that a lot of packages, when they arrive to the customers, sometimes they get crushed during transit. So recently we actually switched to more like a thicker paper stock, but just to ensure, again, everything is recyclable, biodegradable, etc. But also ensuring our supplier as well, when they ship their containers to us, it doesn't contain any plastic in there as well. So yeah, I think for us is really to find that balance between protecting our goods to and from from our supplier to the customers, but just maintaining that sustainability aspect of it.
So a quick follow-up question, Bernard, because you said that you recognize you had to change your packaging because it was to a thicker type of stock. Did that change the weight of the packaging? Did that increase your costs now? Was there any additional impact because of making those changes?
That's a great question, because I believe anything under 1 pound is the same cost anyway. So when we choose the option, we just choose the mailer, because compostable and our packaging. So the size is the same. It's slightly heavier, but the cost for the actual packaging is a bit more, because we also source from Canada. So we found, if anyone's interested, we found an incredible supplier in Montreal that makes and creates these packages. They're pretty much kind of like the paper mailer that has bubbles in it, the bubble wrap in it, but instead of the bubble wrap, they have their own technology in it that's dissolvable, which is kind of cool. It's slightly more expensive, but our customers love it. Yeah.
Good. Adam, any thoughts on this topic?
Oh, master cases and inners, and I mean, all of it is just, part of the evolution of growth, I guess. I'm trying to remember back to the kind of earlier days when we were shipping smaller amounts, but we've graduated now and moving a lot more volume. So I'm a little bit more disconnected from that part of the business. We try to avoid plastic at all costs, one of our kind of brand values. So we're a plastics-free company, and so far we've done it to date, with the exception of some pallet wraps. We use everything from paper tape, and really try to have eliminated plastic entirely from the supply chain as it relates to shipping. But you can't always avoid it if the carriers end up using plastic on your products when you're shipping things around. But yeah, the packaging manufacturers you end up working with as you scale, you're obviously going to be just buying stuff in bulk and kind of picking out your own materials and shipping stuff from the ground up on your own to begin with. But as you continue to scale, a lot of the packaging manufacturers you end up working with will work with you pretty collaboratively on making sure that everything from UPC codes that need to be on there are displayed correctly, and the material lines up with your brand's values if you do have an environmental kind of mission behind what you do. So going back, just like leaning into those suppliers, and helping with your packaging materials and the choices that you're making.
Good. And based on what I heard from both of you, I mean, that's why I want to bring it up, because there could be, to the packaging requirements, there could be a purpose because of your business, and for both scenarios there is, but then there's that whole requirement on making sure that you can get your product from one, point A to point B, and timely, not damaged, those type of things. So great to hear. Celine, do you have anything that you want to add with regards to packaging requirements and any challenges or any learnings from it?
Yeah, just lately, we used to have a distributor for Europe that would again buy from China and just ship any order we had. But now we're gonna sell direct to some distributors. So we have a European master distributor. all this to say that I just discovered the concept of the Euro palette. Have you ever heard of that?
The what? Sorry.
The Euro, like European palette. So they call it Euro palette.
No.
So yeah, the European palette, of course, is smaller than the American palette. So then they asked me, "Oh, are your cartons optimized for European palettes?" I'm like, no such thing existed. Like 6 years ago when I defined what my master cartons were going to be. So just something I wanted to share there. If you're planning to sell to Europe, there is such a thing as a Euro palette. I don't have it by heart. What the dimensions are, I remember they're 120 per 122 centimeters here in North America, but in Europe, I believe they're 80 centimeters by 120. Anyway, they're smaller. So it makes a big difference for us. So now, we might consider changing our packaging, not the box we sell to our end consumer, but the master cartons.
Excellent. And I'm glad that you wrapped up with that, because the reason I asked the question is one of the things that we see all the time when we're working with entrepreneurs and small businesses is the fact that there's a lot of effort put into the packaging, the shelf packaging of the product, but very little is thought about the shipping container. And not until you get to that stage. And not thinking about that upfront could cause challenges, could cause cost, other problems. You might be forced to make changes. All of that is time and money, right? So when I get asked all the time, when should I think about that? I always say during your R&D phase, when you're still finalizing your product, its packaging, what it is, what it's going to be made out of, start thinking about, if I'm going global and I'm going to put this into a package to get it around the world, what is that going to be? How's it going to look? What's it going to weigh? All of that is critical. So that's the reason I asked, and I'm glad that all of you had some really valid points to share. Let's jump into the next question. And you know what? I think I'll start with Kind Laundry first. But each of your businesses are rooted in having a social impact, right? So Kind Laundry's mission is to eliminate 1 billion plastic detergent jugs from polluting our planet every year. Youth of Ag is to provide a dignified option for the disposal of deceased animals made from non-toxic materials. And of course, Scout reinvest a portion of the revenue to First Nations led environment and fisheries in the regions that you're sourcing from, right? So again, starting with Kind Laundry, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs that are starting up a business while also seeking to factor in social or an environmental responsibility?
Yeah, I guess I'll start. So I think it's a no-brainer, but you got to do it because of the actual big why, and not because you do it because it's a fad and everyone is making money off it. Because to your point, Paul, like because we're now in conversation with Costco as well, and with Costco they want everything in a pallet, with their big containers or trays, and everything needs to be wrapped with plastic in order for it to ship to Costco. But because our mission is to eliminate plastic, now we're actually redirecting that question back to Costco. Is that your actual requirement? Is there any alternative for us not to do that plastic around, right? So, and that's just an example, but that's our day-to-day. Every day we're thinking about ways to just make this planet better and to do things differently. And for us, we wake up every day, face our challenges because of this big why, knowing that we are making an impact. Even though one day, business can be challenging, but hey, if we sold 100 boxes of detergent today, we eliminate 100 plastic detergent jugs going to oceans and landfills. And that's what keeps us going and motivated. So yeah, following that big why is for sure something that drives our business forward.
Love that. Living your purpose, right? There's meaning behind it. Great. Celine, how about from your angle? What's advice would you give entrepreneurs that are trying to make sure that they combine both their business and both the social environmental impact?
Well, so on our side, my medium, but maybe long-term objective would be to have 100% recycled material. in our product. Now we're up to 30%. And I just think it's such a good thing to do, with all the plastic we don't know. As I agree with you, I try to reduce the amount of plastic needed for my product. For now, we had to focus on just take our place on the market. But so what would I advise entrepreneur is just not to be stopped by the fact that nobody else is doing it, or people putting you limits on your quest to fill up or be aligned with your values, because that's so important. Being an entrepreneur is so demanding. It's so challenging every day. At least if you see and feel that you're in line with your values, just fills up your tank, and then you feel that you're doing that for the good reasons, and then making the world a teeny bit better. That's all.
No, that's good. It's good. Adam, from your perspective.
Sure. I think when you're starting a business today, you don't have a hope to be successful if your mission is not rooted in something that honors the environment and humanity around what you're doing. It's just really hard to be successful in today's marketplace unless your brand stands for something. And if you're a brand starting today, typically you do have a mission, because your mission ends up funneling into your marketing machine and how you connect with your consumer base and your customers. When you're starting out, it's very hard and expensive to build a responsible business. Let me tell you. It takes a lot of time and energy and really patience to do the right thing and to make the most responsible choices that you have available to you as a small business. There's some great kind of accountability opportunities out there, like, striving to become a B Corp. We're in pending status right now, and we'll hopefully get our full status in 2 weeks. We've been working on that for well over a year and a half. Becoming a 1% for the Planet member to make sure that your contributions back to various project groups, nonprofits is being tracked, and there's the accountability layer there. Those are all great certifications or programs you can be part of to help you stay accountable and to make sure that your business is making responsible choices. But also on the flip side of that, don't be too hard on yourself. I see in the chat, there's people talking about, compostable packaging or responsible packaging. Sometimes it's not always economical for you to make these decisions in the earliest stages to have a particular material or to be able to contribute back a portion of profits to different projects. But it's good to have those benchmarks, those objectives that you can work towards as part of your goals around your business, even if you can't reasonably afford them resource-wise today, or to make certain changes on packaging today. You should have those milestones kind of identified for something to work towards, because it is, like I said, it's time consuming. It takes a lot of patience. It's difficult, to compete when you're trying to make all these responsible choices. But inevitably, if you do these things, you will be successful, because Gen Zs and millennials are paying attention to what your brand stands for more than ever before. And they're not going to buy from you unless you're making good choices that factor in environmental and human rights.
Yeah, I know that's again great advice all around. And I do like that one part of not beating yourself up if you're starting off and you can't, because at the end of the day, if you're building a business that's rooted in having a social impact, you need to have that business working and up and running for it to be able to have a social impact.
Totally.
So if you can't make ends meet, then what's the point, right? So very, very important, and that's good advice there. And Adam, let's stick with you. So from your experience, how has been a Canadian anchored business helped you, and why do you continue to be anchored in Canada?
Well, there's a number of reasons. Proudly a Canadian business. We live in with the current government, fairly supportive to small, medium-sized businesses looking to export. There are a lot of granting opportunities that you can access by being a Canadian company. We have great tax credits. We have great free trade agreements across the board with many countries. The Trade Commissioner service is incredible. I've worked with them to every market that we've accessed, whether it's getting production set up in Mexico, exporting to the United States. We started to export to Singapore and South Korea. We've been able to talk to folks in market who know how to help and can help us qualify retailers and de-risk that growth. I think it's a great market to hire in, right? When we were looking at like the US growth, you maybe a bigger talent pool there, but it's a lot more cost effective to keep your employee base in the Canadian market. So those are kind of some low-hanging fruit examples of why we're going to continue to be a Canadian headquartered company.
I see Kayla is up here, so we're almost out of time, I'm assuming. So I want to quickly go over to Angie and Bernard, and then Celine. Quickly, if you can maybe share your thoughts on, again, being an anchored business in Canada.
Well, everyone loves Canadians, so that's very helpful.
Yes.
When you're speaking to a lot of international people, but also on top of that, there's a lot of amazing Canadian brands that we actually work with and partner with to buy their product, to be part of our product too. So it's just, there's an incredible, I would say, like network right now, especially in Toronto. And yeah, on top of what Adam just said too.
How about yourself, Celine?
Yeah, I'll just add to that same as the other ones, but also in Quebec we have amazing support for export as well, and what I like about the program from the Ministry of Economy of Quebec is that we do plan a year ahead, but if the plan changes, we spend more or less money, actually less, well, yeah, or differently, they're very understanding. Yeah, so I really feel supported when they don't have, I almost have when they're a small business. So yeah, and great people to work with, very simple to operate a business, I think. Again, if I compare with France, for the employees, for the fiscal declarations and so on, it's just so easy in Canada.
Wow, you know what? I've got so many more questions I want to ask, but unfortunately, we are out of time. And this is why I say I love my job, because I get to meet incredible people that have got incredible journeys and stories to share. So thank you, Celine, Angie, Bernard, Adam, for all of your input and advice. And for us to wrap up, I'm going to turn over to Kayla.
Fabulous. Thank you. Can you tell Paul really loves talking to small businesses and talking about UPS's, offerings and this whole scope? This is challenging, and it's really great to have champions, across the private sector like Paul that really live and breathe practical, support and try to connect the dots with entrepreneurs in our community. So thank you, Paul, for everything that you do for entrepreneurs. Thank you for everyone joining on Facebook, on Zoom. We have a couple of questions that we'll also try to get back to you in the chat function after today's session. We covered a lot of ground, and there's even more coming your way throughout the Startup Global program this year. We have another event, Entrepreneurs Going Global, on May 26th that's just focused on the US market. We tackled a lot of recommendations here, but if you want to understand from a different industry perspective and hear from some additional panelists, we'll pop that registration link right in the chat function. I want to take a moment to thank our incredible partners, UPS, Paul, your entire team, Export Development Canada, and the Trade Commissioner Service, our three co-presenting partners that have all been mentioned today as fabulous resources, and our national and community partners, the Forum for International Trade Training, MasterCard, Scotiabank, eBay, and Google. Thank you everyone for joining us. Good luck on your global journey. We've got a quick feedback poll that's going to pop up right on your screen, and we would love to hear what you thought of today's session. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to our panelists, and best of luck in your journey moving forward.